Hi everyone, it's Lesley here from Hungry Heffy Crafts, and today I've got a light up card featuring some Winnie and Walter products because we've got a Chibitronics collaboration today. I've made this fun, bright, colourful birthday card using some Winnie and Walter goodies. I've got a stencil, I have the Wishing You stamp set, which is a little mini stamp set, and I'm going to be using some white Chibitronics lights along with my Distress Oxide inks today. I'm also going to need a little bit of masking paper because I'm going to be masking some of these stars on this set. I've got a piece of A2 card here and I'm going to work on this panel first of all, and then this will be mounted upon the top of my card base. I've prepped my surface using a powder tool, and I know that I want the words Wishing You kind of about a third the way up on my card, but more over to the right hand side. So I'm placing this on my card and using an acrylic block, I'm going to stamp these stars all over, but I don't want them to get in the way of where my sentiment will be. Once I've stamped a couple of these little guys using my Versamark embossing ink, I'm going to emboss them with some gold embossing powder. Now this embossing powder is from a company called Aladdin and it's called Izink, I-Z-I-N-K, and I love the shimmery shine that it gives. I want to mask off these stars before I do my inking. So I'm using some post-it tape and I'll just stamp some of these with some black ink so it's easy to see. And I will cover each of my embossed stars with a little tiny mask. I don't have dies for these, so I'm doing it the old-fashioned way with a pair of scissors, but luckily these stars are really super easy to cut out. So once I have them cut out, I will position it over each of the stars. Now I've used two different sizes, and because they're pointy but they're uneven because they're hand drawn, so you have to kind of turn it around to figure out exactly the way it goes. And by the power of videography, here we go. All of my stars have masks on them now, and I can move over to inking with my stencil. I have been wanting this stencil for a long time. It's a really basic stencil, but I think I'll use it so much. So I definitely had to get my hands on this one. And I'm using some Scotch tape to tape this down to my work surface. And I'm also grabbing a piece of copy paper here so that I can ink up each of these stripes in a different color and not bleed onto the other areas. I'm using my Distress Oxides and I've picked out kind of a rainbow. It's not exactly a rainbow, I guess, but it is a variety of super bright colors. And then one by one, I'm going to ink up each of these panels, and each time I'm moving along my copy paper so I don't pick up any of the other colors. And flipping over my copy paper, and in a little bit you'll see that I actually cut another piece of my copy paper as well, because I don't want to risk the ink on the copy paper blending onto my project. I want my colors to be pure. So now that I've used my purple, my teal, a green color, and my blue pink, and I've got now an orange, and to finish off a teal color right down at the bottom. So now I can reveal my card underneath, and very carefully I will pull off my stencil and set that to the side so that I can clean it a little bit later on. Sometimes I take it to the sink to clean it, other times I just wipe it down with a baby wipe. So now I can remove all of those masks using some tweezers so I don't get inky fingers on it. And my stencil didn't go the whole way across my card, so I'll just trim down this panel. And I'm also going to use my trimmer to cut away about a 1 centimeter strip on the side of my inked cardstock, because I want to put a strip of black card down the side, and I'm going to use the Heffy Doodle stitched strips of ease dies for this, because I'll get a nice stitching line then along that black piece of card. I'll trim my card base so that it will match the size of this front panel perfectly. And before I go any further, I want to make sure that I can add my greeting, stamp that wishing you sentiment from Winnie and Walter. I'm using my Misty to do this so I can get it perfectly aligned. And also it means that I can stamp it twice to get a nice bold black stamp impression, so it pops a bit more against that colourful background. Now I'm trying to figure out exactly where I want my lights to be. I want them to be behind 3 of my stars. So very carefully, I'm hovering my pencil over where the star is, I'm pulling away the top panel and making a little pencil mark onto the front of my card blank. I'm doing this to 3 stars, 2 above the sentiment and then 1 down at the bottom. And then that will be my guide for where I want my LEDs to be. I've also cut a small strip of copy paper here which will help me house my battery. So I'll add a little bit of sticky tape to the bottom corner, and now I have a little flap, a little paper flap that will hold my battery. Now for my copper tape, what I need to do is lay down 2 lines of copper tape, and one will connect to the positive side of the battery and the other one will connect to the negative side of the battery. So I'm laying these down, making sure those little dots where my LED will be lie in between the channel of the 2 copper strips. Now one of these strips needs to go on that flap that will hold my battery so that it can then touch the other side of my battery when I put it in place. On the inside here, I'm going to put a couple of little 1mm foam pads here. This will mean that my battery is hovering above the copper tape, but when I press down, it will make the connection and my light will light up. So this is my positive side, going to the positive side of my battery, and this other line is the negative side of my battery. So let's stick this down. I'll add a little tape on either side of the copper and then stick that down. And now I know that I want to make sure when I apply my lights that I have the fat side of the triangle, which is the positive. It goes on the positive strip. And then the pointy side of my LED, which is the negative side, it goes on the side which is the negative. Now this top light was being super temperamental, and I made sure that I burnished all of the copper tapes. But here, let me show you how I fixed this problem. I took an excess piece of copper tape and I just trimmed off the edges so that it was about 1 inch in size, and I laid it right over the top of the copper tape that I had already placed, but over the top of those contact areas on my LED. And then I rubbed it down, making sure that it was burnished nicely. This just helps make sure that those LEDs, that the power goes through the LED itself and it'll light up. So now I have my front panel here. When I press this bottom right section, it lights up. But I want to have an instructional so that whoever gets this card will know that something magic can happen. I'm using a set from Lawn Fawn here. Normally I reach for my Hefty Doodle Interactively Yours stamp set, but this one is a bit bigger from Lawn Fawn, and I thought that it would work really well for this card. So I've stamped that down the bottom right, and I'll just add a little bit of my adhesive to the back of this black strip and position that just right underneath so that you can see a little bit of it poking out. I'm using my Misty to align one layer on top of the other to make sure that it's completely aligned and I don't mess it up when I stick it together. And now I just need to finish my sentiment. I'm going to stamp and emboss it onto some black cardstock, and I'm using the Hefty Doodle strips of ease for this, and I picked out that yellowy tone of Distress Oxide to stamp my greeting onto the black strip and then embossed it with some clear embossing powder. I'll add a little tape to the back and then stick this onto the front of my card just underneath where it says wishing you, and position it the way that I want it to be, and use my scissors to trim off the excess. I'll add a little fishtail on the left and then make it flush on the right. So there we go, the card is done, and when you press the button it lights up. I had so much fun playing with these Winnie and Walter goodies. Make sure that you head over to the Chibitronics blog to see more projects from the awesome team. Have a great day and happy crafting! Thank you so much for watching this video. Here's some more videos that you may like. If you haven't already, please subscribe to make sure that you don't miss any of my other videos as soon as they're released. You can also leave me a like and a comment down here, and don't forget to follow me on social media @HungryHeffy. I'll see you there. Have a great day and happy crafting. Bye!